We're back now with more on our special reporting today on Utah sex crimes.
And how Brigham Young University has made policy changes to better address sexual assault on campus. We now go to Kim Fisher with that.
Yeah, we highlighted this issue during the spring, so we actually wanted to check up on the progress at BYU again. So joining me today is Tiffany Turley, Title IX coordinator for the university. Welcome.
Thank you.
So what kind of unique challenges do colleges and universities face when it comes to sexual assault?
I think one thing that's difficult is we're a very contained population, and it can be tricky when you're dealing with these situations and both of the people involved are students. Because recognize that the impacts of sexual assault are on both sides. So whether someone has been victimized by sexual assault or is accused of it, it can impact their education forever. And so it's really important that we're taking all that into account when we're figuring out services or resources on campus. It's also important to keep in mind that we have federal laws and state laws and university policies and things conflicting, so we've tried to manage all of that as best we can.
And I know this is a complicated question that I'm just going to throw out, but how is it that BYU handles these investigations?
So our biggest thing is a fair and thorough process. So at the end of the day, we know we've done the best that we can with the information we've been given. So again, whether it's helping a victim with resources or ensuring a fair process for someone who's been accused, making sure that our campus is as safe as possible, but that we're doing our best all along the way and making it as fair and thorough as we possibly can.
And speaking of helping victims, how is it that you're able to help survivors? Because you have a ton of ways that you can do that.
Yeah, we have a lot of great resources on campus, and it's something we specifically looked at over the past couple of years as we've really taken kind of a deep dive into this issue at BYU. We now have an advocate on campus who works full-time with victims. We have counseling and psychological services that helps with victims. We're well connected in the community. A lot of our cases overlap with, say, law enforcement, and so we try to stay connected there. It's important to us that we're looking at all aspects of this, not just one, but our total response in helping victims and ensure that they've come to our university for a reason, and how can we make it so they can stay there and be as successful as they came to be.
So some of this is back on us as the community as well. What can we do better in order to get our students ready when they go to college, you know, to discuss these kinds of things at home?
I think one thing that I really appreciate is that we're having conversations like this, that we're actually talking about these things. Lots of times when students come to college, it's their first time away from home, their first time away from mom and dad, and it can be scary and they can be inexperienced when it comes to dating and relationships. So having these conversations, talking at home about consent, about healthy relationships, about sexuality, just being open about all of those things and talking about them, because sexual violence and sexual abuse thrives on silence, and so it's really important that we're talking about these things.
So obviously discussing it helps people feel more comfortable coming forward. So if somebody comes to you and they say, hey, I've been a victim of sexual violence, what can we do as a response?
I think it's often, as humans, we want to start connecting, and when we hear this information, unless you're in a job like mine, you're not used to hearing this. So if someone comes to you and discloses, it can be easy to want to jump in and start asking questions and figuring things out. And for us, we say, keep it simple and keep it focused on that person. So we also want to connect as humans by saying, oh, I've been through that, or I've experienced something like that. But sometimes that can mitigate what that person is going through. And so recognizing that keeping it simple and keeping it focused on them. One thing we also often suggest them to say is, thank you for telling me this. Clearly you're very strong and courageous. How can I help? And then do what that person needs and keep it focused on them. Avoid judgment. People react in different ways. Know what resources are available. Don't misinterpret people's responses. You think they should respond or shouldn't respond in a certain way. Don't let any feelings that you might be having impact that. They've come to you, they trust you, and focus on that.
Start by believing. All right, Tiffany, thank you so much for visiting with us today.